Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. We've got a bit more news on Warhammer Community, looking at some of the models which are going to be coming in our direction in early 2025. This time it's Wizards for the Empire of Man. Now I've been thinking about doing a video about Wizards for a little while, particularly around the Empire of Man, because I think the way that they fit in to the general composition is a little bit odd. And now seems a really good opportunity to not only explore the models that are coming in the new year, but also to think about my wider thoughts around Wizards and why I don't think they fit quite in the way they are written in the book. Before we go into that, let's talk about the importance of Wizards generally, however, and Magic users for Warhammer the Old World. Magic is very different from the way it was, particularly in the 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. And I think that's really important. We're not finding the lethality of magic being reduced. In fact, I'd argue that, if anything, it's just as effective, but just in a very different way and a more plausible, useful way. So back in the old days of 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, what you used to see was the big doom spells, and you used to get to roll up to 6 dice to try and cast a spell to hit its power level. So people were fishing for the big spell, they'd throw a load of dice at it, and you'd get 1 or 2 spells cast in the magic phase, looking to bring a maximum amount of pain to your opposition. That's no longer the case. Wizards now are much more of a support character. Yes, there's magic missiles that can pink off wounds here and there. There's vortexes which can prevent models from moving freely and cause them damage. There's various buffs, debuffs, etc. floating around. But as a wizard, you're casting stuff in every single phase now, not just looking for that one big Hail Mary shot that breaks the game. But everyone knows this, and everyone's going to be packing at least 1 level 4, if not more. The dwarves, well, yes, they don't have access to magic users per se, but they do have the Anvil of Doom, which gives them some magical capabilities, plus they've got their natural resistance. They've got runesmiths to help with dispels, etc. So long story short, everyone's packing a level 4 in a 2,000 point game, if not more. And it's almost a requirement to do so. Yes, there's builds that can work around it and be hyper-aggressive to get it in before the wizards can get their work done. But I think in the vast majority of circumstances, we're seeing that wizard there. So let's turn now to the Empire, and as is acknowledged in the Warhammer Community article, when it comes to the Empire, the game is set before the Great War against Chaos, before that incursion which led to Magnus the Pious becoming Emperor, inviting Teclis to help found the colleges of magic and teach his skills to the wizards of humanity. Now, this doesn't mean that wizards don't exist. They absolutely do. We know that from the lore. There are wizards, sorcerers, hedge wizards, witches, etc. floating around, and many will find themselves in the employ of local lords. These people are, however, incredibly dangerous because they are untrained magic users. They are more susceptible to the wiles of chaos because they don't know how to necessarily defend themselves against it. Things are slightly more likely to go wrong. But witchcraft, generally wizardry, it's more frowned upon in this time in the Empire's history. Even when we were going into the end times at the end of 8th edition, the law was very clear that a lot of people suspected wizards. Witch hunters kept a very close eye on what they were doing. They weren't trusted. And Warhammer the Old World is set before they even had anything to do with an official institution. So those levels of suspicion and the like would be so much higher. So it wouldn't make sense in my mind for a wizard to be openly paraded around by a noble, particularly when we look at all the civil strife going on at this time in the Empire, people trying to take advantage of others' weaknesses. If you're openly working with wizards, that may mean you become a target for your enemies and those that would seek to do you harm. So why would a lord of the Empire be walking into battle with 2-3 very powerful wizard lords by his side? It just doesn't really make an awful lot of sense to me. And I think it's unfortunate that when we're looking at character choices for the Empire, that we are now having to lean so heavily into wizards. Why is that? Well, when we look at the way the Empire is played, generally I think there's two ways of playing. There's your demigryph list at the moment, backing up various knights, and there's your gunline list. The gunline list seemingly the more effective of the two. So we're really looking at lots of crossbows, handguns, outriders, cannon, steam tanks, volley guns. And when we're looking to pick characters to support that list, we're kind of narrowing ourselves down to 3 options. Now, it's a little bit of a disappointment, I think, with the news we're getting about the Arcane Journal, that the Army of Norn is going to be one of the armies of infamy. That's almost certainly feels like it's going to be a gunline army, and that's already one of the most effective ways of playing the Empire. So I would have liked something different, a different way of playing the game. And we know one of the special characters, General Hans, is going to give us a +1 to the dice roll to get the first turn. Now that sounds like it may well be building on top of the +1 you already get for out-deploying your opponent. And if so, that would give you a +2 to that dice roll. An excellent opportunity to make sure that your Empire army is getting that first devastating round of shooting in to weaken the enemy's attempts to close with you quickly. So I think he's probably going to be an auto-include, cost and stats notwithstanding, because we don't know that yet. Other characters you're looking at, engineers, obviously they're the ones that keep your guns firing. They keep your volley guns up to the accuracy level that you'd like. And then there's wizards. Now in 2024, if I'm setting up a competitive style Empire list, I'm probably running 3 wizard lords, all with battle magic, and then a couple of toys just to try and improve their reliability. Ruby Ring of Ruin will be going in there, stuff like that. If we look ahead to 2025 and the Throne of Skulls tournament that Games Workshop are going to be running, they're actually bringing in some comp to restrict the number of wizard lords that can be taken in a 2,000 point army. So this means instead of seeing 3 wizard lords, we're going to be realistically seeing 2 of them. And if this comp feeds into the way most people play the game, now it may not, it may do. Looking historically at comp from major events, it has leaked into the way a club game is played. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. So we're seeing 2 wizard lords. It's still a lot of wizards, I think, for the way the Empire wants to be because of its association with the lore at this current time. Now, I'd love to see the Empire working well with warrior priests, with witch hunters, the more unique style characters that just make the Empire a little bit different. I can't see that happening though. The wizards are going to remain just too important. And with that said, let's now have a look at the models that are coming out next year. All 3 of these models are going to be sold in packs with their familiar. So what have we got? Well, first of all, we have got a wizard that's based around the battle magic lore with it's described as gnomic familiar. The second is something more akin to what would have been in the day the old lore of beasts. This is an elemental wizard, and we're starting to see in the article things like Gur, Azir named. Names you're probably more familiar with these days from Age of Sigmar, albeit they are connected to the old 8 colleges of magic. And finally, we're seeing a necromantic character. For me personally, I think it's the battle mage that looks the most impressive. It looks perhaps closest to what I would expect an Empire wizard to look like. it's got that sort of style of dress, etc. Now, again, we've not seen these models next to anything else, so it's difficult to call out size scales, but the more beast magic looking character looks like, well, let's face it, he's got a head that looks like it would be better suited on a dwarf. He's got massive great antlers attached to him. It looks like an Age of Sigmar model rather than the slightly neater, less detailed character we'd perhaps want to associate with Warhammer the Old World. Although I say that, and I do appreciate that increasingly as more and more stuff gets released, we're seeing more and more models of this sort of aesthetic hitting the Old World. As for the Necromancer, I can't really decide if I like this model or not, if I'm honest. It seems to have a bit of whiff of the 40k about it, and I can't really put my finger on why. Maybe it just reminds me of some of the old artwork that we've seen across the various books for that game over the years. So maybe it's something that will grow on me. I don't know. But there we have it. They are my takes on wizards, particularly those of the Empire of Man, and touching on the 3 new wizards that we're going to see, models of coming out in 2025. I'd imagine it's going to be fairly early next year, but of course we need to wait for the official announcement to be sure of any dates. If you've got any comments or thoughts, do let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening. I am returned to the Old World. Have a great day.